it was AR that started the ACIO and the Labyrinth group. But interestingly enough, which is what we can get into, I learned a lot more about the intelligence acceleration software. So I guess not to be blunt, but let's just share with each other, what you know about it, and I'll tell you what I know. And more information, the better, right? Because I think it can explain a lot too with some of the accelerated rising of frequency that especially we're going through. Because from what I understand, they used a more potent version of it on all of us team members. And, it caused some of us to go insane. But I don't know. Do you want to start first or you want me to tell you what I know? It doesn't matter to me. We can all, get through it.
I can start. I think it's better than I start because I have a more like personal perspective on it. You talk about
Perfect.
software. I see that as like a soft technology. Maybe it overlaps. Um,
Yes.
so the basics. The universe is made of information as energy, energy as information. The
Hmm.
cerebral cortex is not the only organ in the body that processes information. The rational mind is not the only mind that is to be used. So we have what's called a subconscious mind that processes a shit ton of information, and the heart processes information. Every cell of the body processes information. The aura, the Mesner field, processes information.
Hmm.
Intel acceleration technology is soft technology in my perception, the way
It
I,
is.
and it is a way to integrate and unify those different centers of processing informations. So there's like technique, you need to know what does what, the responsibilities of the conscious mind, responsibilities of the subconscious mind, not confuse the roles, or otherwise, you get shaky results. And then you do the personal work of integrating. So there's a lot of emotional processing because we've been brought up in a compartmentalized world where, you know, math is in that square, economics is in that square, language is in that square, history is in that square, and they don't teach you how one relates to another. Same with the thinking, same with intelligence, same with emotional processing. So you got to kind of break a lot of limiting beliefs, for lack of a better word, um, a lot of perceptions and preemptive realities on how things should be to come into the simplicity that you can know from intuition. But that requires training, constant attuning. And of course, there are techniques, meditations, and things like that that accelerate your embodiment of that technology slash capacity skill. Um, so a lot of people are in manifestation these days. To me, intel acceleration is very much like manifestation with a different intention. So you set an intention to extract information, to ask for guidance, to surrender to the T boundary, to source what should my next move be. And then you wait, and intuition, I won't go into too much detail. That's already a good overview, but the intuition really guides you. The rational mind is here to decode, to linearize what is received by what Nikola Tesla was calling like a flash, a bolt of illumination. Like you receive the knowing in one flash, and then you slowly decode it with the rational conscious mind. That's roughly like well, I'm sure you know all of this, but that would be my way of introducing the soft technology that Intel acceleration is. I would like to add a little upgrade on it, because through the Life Physics group, I've met Jonathan Davies, who developed the Unity bubble that has proved to be a huge upgrade, a huge facilitator into that whole journey of Intel acceleration, essentially. So it was not meant for that, but it's a tool that is what I found the most useful tool with another tool to process emotions. um, for Intel acceleration.
Well, all accurate. And it's really nice to talk to you. It's nice to talk to someone that I can talk to. Um, it gets lonely of trying to talk to people. Can't talk about any of this, because they just right over their head. And I get it. But well, what I can tell you is from what I understand, most of our realities are created at about 27 frames per second. And that's all of your senses. It says you can prove this to yourself by getting a strobe light. And, it's at a lower frequency, it's strobing. But as you speed up, it's getting faster and faster. When you hit about 27 frames per second, it turns into a solid white light. That all of the data that we take in that builds our waking state consciousness is only about 27 frames per second. But as you said, our unconsciousness and the mass unconsciousness, it takes in millions of bits of information that are accessible through hypnosis or whatever. Well, the intelligence acceleration software takes away that governor between the waking state consciousness and the millions of bits of information that are down in your unconsciousness. And so when you need, it's like a need to know as well. It's like when you need information and you ask, now you'll have a much larger pool of information for your waking state consciousness to build its knowledge from. But the issue is that most of our shadow work is buried in the unconsciousness. And every time we were wounded as a child and we had an adult that was rude to us or, mistreated us, or whenever we were wounded on a soul level, that stuff gets buried deep down. So when all of a sudden that governor is removed from our waking state consciousness to this larger pool of information, all of that buried shadow work also surfaces. Um, and what I can tell you is they used a more advanced version of it on us. But I'm curious, they would have had to ask you if you were okay with it. But how I was asked is kind of AR said, if you're going to go forward with us, just know that the ACIO or the LPG, they're more than likely they're going to be looking into everything you do and say, and God knows what else. But God knows what else is where it got slid in. I was never told specifically that this was going to happen and we were going to be put under this intelligence acceleration software. But because of that, even, in our unconsciousness, we store a lot of cellular memory from past lives, even. The human body looks at it as an outside stressor because really it's going to make you transmute perhaps lifetimes of shadow work in a few years. So on our side of things, it just seems like your life has become a shit show. You know what I mean? Like it said that it's very stressful on the human body and psyche to have to process that amount of shadow. Because I can tell you the Anunnaki know that thoughts have an electromagnetic reality. There's a waveform attached. So how do you transmute a negative thought form? Well, you live it. The only way through is to face your own shadow and to give it love, even if it breaks you down. And then if you can give it love, you'll transmute those energies into their higher octave but if you don't do that, the same shit will keep recirculating through your consciousness, usually with a greater intensity. And you'll go, why does the same shit keep happening to me? It's the same thing, but it's different people, but it's the same experience. It's because we've not yet transmuted those parts of it, if we did, it wouldn't keep recirculating. So truly, that's bootstrap evolution, right? It's we're responsible. No one can do it for us. And but what I can tell you is the whole world is under version 1.0, and it started 27,000 years ago. And the soft technology, as you call it, is actually broadcast from the moon, and it's tied to moon phases. I don't know if you know this, but I'm just sharing with you that you know how when there's a full moon, people go a little nuts, and there's more crime, there's more hospital visits, you know. It's actually backwards, that the dark side, that is, I don't even know if dark is the right terminology anymore, but their spiritual job is to make sure no one gets through the proverbial Stargate into higher realms that will give their energy and their I am away to illusionary outside sources. So, well, how do they do that? Well, that side will see if they can get you to give your energy and your I am away to illusionary outside sources, and they'll dangle dark carrots in front of you to see if they can get you to bite. And if you bite, well, then they'll go back and say, look, another one of those crazy humans is giving their energy away. And they always abuse their power over others. They always abuse their power over themselves, even. And and there's a specific reason why this was implemented on humanity 27,000 years ago. That was the time of the deluge and the flood. And part of our Anunnaki family, so I know you, well, maybe you don't know, but all of us that was part of the beta team was hybrids. Did you know that?
I know
Meaning
nothing
you.
about myself.
That means you're a hybrid of in I'm not religious in any typical sense whatsoever, but in the Bible, it said the Elohim, which is the wing makers, uh, created a hybrid bloodline known as the Nephilim. And it was a specific reason because when they didn't cause the deluge, their scientists seen it was going to happen. And it was just a natural occurrence. The Earth is off axis, and those poles are going to want to relocate to the equator when the ice caps reach maturity. And there's a physics behind it that the pressure, think of how heavy an ice cap is. Imagine a 5 gallon bucket of water that's frozen. It's freaking heavy. Now think of a whole continent covered in miles of ice. It creates such pressure that the rock strata underneath the polar ice caps crush and turn into a lubricant, which allows the whole crust to slip. That's what created the pole shift. And my brother's side of the family, he was known as Enlil. I don't know how much of the mythology you know of the Anunnaki.
Yeah, I know a bit of them.
We met in this 3D world, by the way. And at the end of, for the last 5 years, we were working together, and much brotherly love was flowing. But, you know, he said, Michael, you got to know this isn't the first time we've met. We've met in many other incarnations. And the last time it was not pleasant. I'm like, oh shit. I still don't know what that's about. But he said, but I understand now you were only showing me my own darkness, because that side of the family was absolutely okay with letting mankind perish in the flood. They're like, I don't like them anyhow. They always give their energy away, and they're noisy and don't want nothing to do with them. That wasn't cool with our side of the family, because we looked at mankind as family. And so I went to bat for humanity. And because our side, the wingmaker side of the family, has a Pleiadian mother. And the Pleiadian side is a much older. See, some of the words, from what I understand, the Anunnaki themselves, without the Pleiadian side, are much a younger race and more militaristic in their thinking. And whereas the Pleiadian side is a little bit older and wiser, I don't know if that's the right word, but a little bit more functioning emotional bodies because they just have a larger pool of life experience to pull from. But as the story goes, I went to our mother's side and said, "Isn't there anything that can be done?" Uh, the other side's going to let mankind perish and not even lift a finger to help. So out of this became the whole idea of the ark, which was a DNA library. It wasn't truly an ark with two of every animal. That's stupid. Excuse my language. But with the Palladian being able to use future sight, they seen that we had a very, the end of this Mayan calendar and the precessional cycle was 2016, not 2012. And all of their future sight of looking into the future, 99 out of 100 times mankind evolved technologically quicker than they did spiritually. And we just ended up, pointing our nuclear weapons at each other and we destroyed ourselves. So they're like, well, what's the purpose of saving mankind if they're just going to self implode anyhow? So this is where the intelligence acceleration comes in, because we went back to the drawing board and said, well, what if mankind was put into a holographic reflected matrix that would reflect back our own mental energy in an accelerated, amplified, magnified manner, unbiasedly? Whatever you put out, you're going to get back magnified. And except really, they didn't understand how dark we would take it as humans. And I hate people might not realize, and I've earned the right, you've earned the right to be. We've walked a mile in our moccasins, and I've embraced my inner monkey. But man, monkeys are vicious. Look at behavior. We're barely the veneer of civilization is so thin that it doesn't take much for us to really embrace our more animal side. And so the intelligence acceleration software was like the Pleiadian said, well, that's an interesting idea. It's never been done before in the whole bigger picture of the multiverse, to make an upcoming race experience its own mental energy in an accelerated fashion. But they said the version that was used on us is a much more amplified version of it. And the example that was given to me is, if you're going to take a large block of ice and you want to mold it into a beautiful statue of a swan or whatever, if you take a chainsaw to it and it's still frozen hard, it'll shatter. You can't work with it. But if it begins to melt, then you can form it and shape it and, you know, deal with it. In the same way, if version 2.0 intelligence acceleration software was used on someone that hadn't done their spiritual homework and weeded the fear and doubt and bullshit out of their own belief system, it's not going to work out well, because they're just going to experience all of that in a very amplified way. And what I can tell you, I found this interesting, is Frank said that I don't know exactly who, but he said only myself and a few others of the team have actually come out the other side and recalibrated to normal life. And so I don't know who's who. I didn't ask them, but I think it's important for everyone to kind of know, and I don't know how to handle that, but just to give you hope that if your life has been turned upside down, that you might still be under the effect of this, and just give it love. Don't, you know, I've learned that whenever these things happen in our lives that bring us into trial and tribulation, to train yourself to go, okay, thank you for showing me what I still got a fear stamp on. Now, what else is available? Because if you don't ask what else is available and you accept those first thought forms, you're going to own them. It will become your reality, and you'll go, see, I'm right. You're not right. You're just experiencing your own mental energy reflected back to you. Like, I know you're not prejudiced, but let's use that as an example. If you're prejudiced and you're made to experience your own mental energy, more than likely you're going to go out and get mugged by whatever race that you're prejudiced against. You're going to go, see, told you. Well, you could have chosen love just as easily and experienced a much better outcome. But AR had told me that most humans' mental energy does not affect the mass consciousness. Because if all of your manifestations only come through learn, everyone's learning. The question is, are you doing it consciously or unconsciously? If it's unconscious manifestation, it comes from the mass consciousness. It's still filled with a lot of fear and doubt and nonsense. It could be peace, love, and good happiness. If so, run with it, right? But if it's fear, I've had to train myself, because what I heard is the first 15 seconds is truly coming from the mass unconsciousness. We think we're thinking because that comes in our own minds, in our own voice, and uh, in our own heads, but it's truly from the mass unconsciousness. But if you accept those first thought forms, that becomes your reality, and truly no evolution is happening. There's no bootstrap evolution happening. It's only until you go, I get it, you know, now what else is available? And, what I understood too is that there's no such thing as free will. That if there's an infinite amount of parallel realities from light to dark, and you're going to tune into whatever reality through your own belief system, that there's only one most love filled outcome for everyone involved. And any other thought form choice is just a trip back into the Maya or the illusion to one degree or the other. If there's only one in for us Native American, I'm Iroquois. We call it the Red Road. It's like there's only one way, one path. It doesn't mean, it might not be that dark, but it could be. But the intelligence acceleration software really kicks things up a notch, especially version 2.0 that we've had implemented on us. I can tell you after this, they approached me and asked me if I thought mankind should be put under 2.0. I said, absolutely not. You know, um, if this only was because we had to have a crash course and the children, meaning us, humankind, needed to be taken to school because the end of this Kali Yuga and this cycle, because the Anunnaki told me themselves that the second we entered the age of Aquarius, that it's over. That they told me personally that the way the Anunnaki relate to mankind and their succession of kingship is all related to the precessional cycle. Well, I should ask you, I didn't know what the precessional cycle was at that time. I had to learn. Do you know what the precessional cycle is?
No
Okay.
idea.
You heard of, the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That's the precessional cycle. It's, because the Earth is off axis, 18 degrees. If you took a arrow and went straight out into outer space from the top of the Earth, as the Earth rotates, it doesn't stay in the exact same spot. It wobbles like a top, like you've spun a top on a table. And That wobble creates a circle, and that circle takes 25,920 years to complete. The Anunnaki calls it the Great Year because that's the longest time slice. What's very interesting, I'm onto the 432 subject of aligning oneself with cosmic harmonious frequencies. If you take 25,920 and divide it by our lowest time slice, for the most part, it's 60, whether it's 60 seconds in 12 hours. Well, 25,920 divided by 60 is 432. So precessional cycle numbers are actually frequency numbers. And that's interesting to me in itself. But so 27,000 years ago, if you went out into outer space and you put yourself in the middle of that circle, that would be the astrology constellations around you. You would see Taurus, you would see, Pisces, Aquarius. And so every one of those 12, pretty much takes 25,920 divided by 12, whatever that is. I think it's 2,160, if I'm not mistaken, which is interesting because that's an octave of 432. Dude, our whole reality is 432 based, which blows my mind a little bit because, right when I learned right on, man. I am blown away because I just followed intuition. And this is exactly what AR said. I was being brought into the fold. He said, you have music in you, but not just music in the idea of writing a cool song like the Beatles, that to create physical matter, you need frequencies, but not just a specific frequency. You need specific frequencies, plural, which means either a chord or a melody. And it's happened. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about in 2008, but now it's all come to fruition. And he said, more than likely, you're going to learn the true Pythagorean scale, which all creation comes from. And the Pythagorean scale is very simple. It just means your A note equals 432. It's that simple. By the way, even back in Egypt, look at how many seconds is in 12 hours. It's 43,200 or 432. It's like they've been drip feeding us, waiting for us to get to the point to decode what they've left us. And I was wondering too, because I found out all the ancient sites encode, most of the world are going to tell you their precessional cycle numbers. People like Graham Hancock, he and I have become friends. And they know all these sacred sites are encoding 432 based math and physics. And I thought, well, why are they doing that? Is it just to leave us a library, you know what I mean, in stone? So sooner or later we go, why is all like, but I can tell you, Richard Hoagland, I don't know if you know who Richard is, but he is NASA's science advisor throughout all the Apollo missions, and he still is. Um, he contacted me and he said, Michael, we know your story sounds batshit crazy to most other people, but NASA's been looking into how energy flows multidimensionally. He calls it hyperdimensionally for a very long time, and your numbers are right on the money. So he's the one that arranged for NASA to look into my work and the mug that you're using. Um, and sure enough, I was told by my brother-in-law how to do an ancient water blessing ceremony that would quantum entangle the container that contains life force or prana or chi into the highest amounts on this planet is water, but only when it hasn't been brought before a human because um, water's listening. I don't know. Are you familiar with Dr. Emoto?
Yes.
Right on. it's listening to human thought form and it's recording everything that it comes in contact with. So water that's coming from an underground spring aquifer, which there's thousands of them in Florida here in the United States, is bringing up very pure water. It's all fountain of youth water. And like for instance, where I was living at, there's what's called Rainbow Springs, and it's a magnitude one spring, which means 1 million gallons of water a day is coming up. You can see it churning, looks like a jacuzzi. And you can go swimming there, by the way, too. It's unbelievable. It's like taking a swim in Kundalini water. It's unbelievable. And when a fish goes by you, dude, it looks like it's floating in midair as it goes by. And I highly recommend it. But how the technology that you're using is, I was told to go there, and taught me an ancient water blessing ceremony that would quantum entangle through like holographic principles even um the chi and prana in holy water to that image. And I can share with you, if you want to ever quantum entangle anything, it just takes reciting it 3 times. Nikola Tesla knew this. I don't know if you know that, but he would go around a building 3 times before he entered it. If he wanted something, he would say it 3 times, because the first time it might be, you and I know there's no such thing as coincidence, but it's just as, just for simplicity, it could be a coincidence that you've said something. If you say it twice, it might be happenstance. Just that's how it went. By the third time, you've stated to the universe, you know exactly what you're doing. You're asking for this, and it'll quantum entangle anything that you want to quantum entangle. So I was told to go there, go to the spring and take the disc and just with intention, dip it into the spring water 3 times. And he said, once I did this, which was 2018, I did it at Rainbow Springs, that ceremony is not bound to our space-time continuum. It's he said, even if someone got one of my discs in 2014, it was already transmitting this chi, this prana, this life force, because it's not bound by our linear time of this space-time continuum, which that hurts my head. But he also said that anything that contains the image, the mojo is in the image, even though putting it in the quartz crystal with a copper wrap is going to turn it into a transceiver, but he said, regardless, it doesn't matter whether it's on a mug or a t-shirt or a coaster or canvas wrap, anything. It's putting out this energy. So I'm very excited for Elon Musk taking it to the moon in November, because all it needs to do, and NASA told me as well, that the longer something is in its field, the more the energy grows exponentially. And dude, I just got to share this with you because it's important that the biophysicist from NASA said apparently Michael has created a cosmic energy collector. And I'm like, what the hell is a cosmic energy collector? Here, that's Nikolai Tesla's own words for his unlimited free energy, the 369, energy that he was working on. I'm like, holy shit, I'm finishing up Nikolai Tesla's work here. That's freaking nuts. But the fact, if you have the disc, and I just got new science that, man, a friend of mine owns a business that he has technology that can read the body's Meissner field, and every organ has an electromagnetic field around it. So if there's something out of homeostasis, it'll show up as a black cloud on the image. And the more it's out of whack, the darker it becomes. So he hit image, and I had about 7 things out of whack. He said, hold out your hand now. And because he had taken the disc, because I couldn't walk over with it, that would negate the science, right? But he put the disc into my hand, and I put it on top of my other hand, which was on top of the technology that's going to read my Meissner field, and he hit image again. So we're talking like 2 seconds. Dude, it healed everything in my body, every single organ. That's where disease even comes from. So I think it's fascinating that it's almost instantaneous, its effect on our Meissner field. But I'm kind of even confused with the statement that the longer something is in its field, the energy grows exponentially. Because to me, there's got to be some type of ceiling. It can't just grow like forever, but maybe it does. It Even if there is a ceiling, spirit's telling me, well, it might be the transmitting part of it. See what I'm saying? Like the more you keep something in its field, the more it's broadcasting the frequency. But when it goes to the moon and it's going in very torsion field, hyperdimensional physics, quartz crystal, it's made very specifically. And it's going to be there for the next 10 billion years, shining down on this planet. You know, what Dr. Emoto showed is once one drop of water is restructured, if you take a glass of water that he taped, I love you, or, no worries, or whatever. And once it's restructured and it has perfect snowflake sacred geometry, if you took one droplet of that water and put it into another glass that had never been introduced to the thought form, it'll restructure all of that as well. So the point is that once one droplet of water in our atmosphere becomes restructured, it's going to fall down on this planet into our waterways, whether it's creeks, streams, ponds, lakes, oceans. By the way, man, this is really funny because when I met the Anunnaki, they said you were once known as the water bearer. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Excuse my language, but I'm like, but it makes no sense to me. But now, man, I can look someone in the eye and go, you know what? I am the water bearer. Want to see the NASA's science to back it up. But anyhow, spirits tell me it's hard to even contemplate the effect this will have on mankind because we're entering a new age of living water. And living water are you familiar with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
Yes.
It says in there that living water is an analogy for chi or prana or life force. That's what's in the buckets, by the way, when you see the depictions of the Anunnaki in the past. They're not Anunnaki man bags. It's a sign that you're dealing with the water bearer side of the family. And so it's going to create a chain reaction of bringing mankind into a whole world of living water. One thing I could tell you that I'm working on right now is wait till mankind sees what happens when you use 432 water for agriculture. It creates much larger yield, much quicker, and the crop is impervious to drought. You don't need as much water, but the nutritional value of every bite you take, like say a potato,
Mhm.
every bite will have over twice the amount of nutritional value when it's made with holy water, or whatever. But in a nutshell, that's what's happening. But I want to bring up an idea of I told them no, for putting humanity under 2.0, but I'm not so sure it just wasn't implemented because everything I understand is we're coming up to a grand fork in the road,
Phase-
and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I hear it is the next coming full totality eclipse in April of 2024. That whatever direction you're heading in your own spiritual evolution, you're going to be catapulted into that. It's like the separation of people that's going to be staying in 3D land. They're still believing in everything that they were told to believe by mass media, and they've not looked inward for any type of knowledge. And they're going to have a bumpy ride, man, because their whole world, that carpet's going to be pulled out from under them because, from what I understand too, that's the grand reveal. That during the full totality eclipse, when day becomes night, the sky is going to be filled with the chariots of fire of the Anunnaki. And those orbs of light, what I've learned, because I've been contacted by Bigelow Aerospace, who owns Skinwalker Ranch, and they said that three of these orbs of light, which actually, just so you know, those are Merkabas. They're ascended masters in there that have got their Meissner field spinning in a very, that turns into a Merkaba. And three of them can come together in some process unknown to mankind, create a giant triangular craft that thousands of them can then use. So it's almost like a spiritual light technology that just a few of them in service to the whole can create a craft that thousands of them can use and come and see what us crazy humans are doing. But with the Skinwalker Ranch, they would see the exact same orbs of light come down and take on biological life form, whether it's a giant wolf or a giant deer or whatever. So that's something. This is not my opinion. This is the UK Ministry of Defense and Bigelow Aerospace, which is weird, dude, because I can't tell you, they've sent a couple people my way saying if you want to know what the phenomenon is behind the Skinwalker Ranch, we can't tell you because they're under confidentiality agreements, but you should go talk to Michael. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Where's my paycheck? You know what I mean? But anyhow, that in the full totality eclipse, it said that all the night sky from one end of heaven to the other is going to be filled with craft. The whole world is going to be looking up, you know? So I'm excited, but it would make sense to me because they said because this is the separation of the cell. And that time is when it's separated. Um, all of the past life baggage that we needs to be transmuted, now is a real good time to get rid of it. So I'm not so sure they haven't implemented version 2.0 on the world because man, it seems like it, doesn't it? That everyone is experiencing their
It,
own.
there's a lot of division in everything, but if it were the case, uh, there would be like riots in the streets and a lot of people going crazy, I think. I mean, look at how we were prepared. We did our work diligently, and still it was we knew what was happening, and still it was so intense and still is. So
Yes.
um maybe not, but
Yeah, I don't that's just I don't even know. I'm just talking out loud. Um I find it very interesting because I told them no, that please don't, because I experienced it myself. But man, I don't, this idea that I've made it through the other side and recalibrated to normal everyday living. I'll I'll tell you, I don't agree, man. My last year has been the worst year of my life, and I've had to face so many of my own shadow work of being betrayed and relationships not working out that I thought my partner was my life partner and I thought everything was hunky dory. Man, I've had my life turned upside down. So I don't know if it's even an on or off thing. It's like maybe I'm 51% clean. You know what I mean? That all it takes. But I can tell you why this is important too
or
is
if I may,
yeah, man.
it's not like you're totally pure, but your way of functioning has dipped is on the other side. Like you've accepted that what's happening outside, your first go-to place to look at the cause of this is not blaming other people, it's going inside.
Ah,
And so,
Right on, man. That makes that resume. I got goosebumps actually.
yeah,
That's right on. It's really nice to talk to you, just so you know.
yeah,
Um,
same. I feel nurtured by this conversation.
hmm, hallelujah.
And for
Um,
me,
but I don't know how much time you got. I mean, we can continue talking. I think we covered what we wanted to talk, but I have a lot of other really interesting things that we could talk about because I've begun work with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, which that's batshit crazy to me. But that thing seems to be able in the wing makers, they call them event strings, which is mm, the orchestrating of the chess pieces on our boards of life below the surface. It's like it's not coincidence. You know what had to happen for you and I to be talking right now? That's an event string. Some have a lot of energy, some don't have very much. But I think the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull has the Akashic records, especially that one. That's the one I'm working with is the 13th one. And it says that has all the Akashic records, information, and knowledge to bring mankind into becoming a galactic society and a peaceful galactic society. All of the other 12 crystal skulls are Earth centric. They only they only house 1/12 of the Earth's Akashic record. And but the 13th, if it's activated, it has all of that information plus the galactic component to make mankind become a galactic society and a peaceful galactic society as ripple free as possible. But all that information is locked inside of it. So throughout Chief Golden Light Eagle, he said that it's over 200,000 years old. And I could tell you, by the way, do you know what I'm talking about? With
yes,
that, all
yeah,
right, right on. Um,
I've seen the pictures of you with it.
yeah, dude, I was not. It wasn't even in my radar, but the current Guardian was bringing it to the Serpent Mound here in Ohio. Those ceremonies done by the tribe leaders, and he just said everywhere he went, people were like, you got to talk to Michael, and then he found out that I'm in the process of revealing an unknown earthwork here in my hometown. Dude, it's huge. It's actually Edgar Casey's Hall of Records for the Atlantean bloodline. Because that's who we are, by the way. We're the remnants of the Atlantean bloodline. Atlantis, I'm I'm totally good with Mike. And what they told me too, when I met the Anunnaki, they said, now that we know that you're one of us, we're going to remove your memory blocks. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't know I had memory blocks. First of all, what's that about? But my second thought was, well, how could suppressed memories enter into my consciousness without me going insane? Because I'm pretty thorough. Everything would have to line up with what I already know and I accept as reality. But at that point, I was adopted. I never knew my Indian heritage. And all of a sudden, all of that got unlocked. I met Chief Golden Light Eagle. He brought me into the fold. I met many of the chiefs and the elders and the grandmothers of all the tribes. But with the skull speaks with its current guardian. And he's part of the Anunnaki as well, which makes sense. By the way, that skull went to Hewlett Packard in the 1970s because they deal with quartz crystal, to use for motherboards or whatever. And under their microscopes, they can't find any tool marks. They said it really shouldn't exist because it's one of the hardest materials on the planet, even though it is brittle, which is weird too, because some of the carving is against the grain and it should shatter, but it's not shattered. But the only other alternative, according to Hewlett Packard, is it would have had to been polished, and it would take millions of years of a human just 24/7 polishing that thing, and it's anatomically perfectly uh, accurate to a female skull, actually. But one thing I don't know if you know, but it has a detachable mandala, the jaw.
I didn't.
And dude, when the first time I sat down in front of it, I don't have usually inanimate objects that communicate with me. This voice, clear as day, said, "Touch your forehead to mine, touch your third eye to mine." I was like, I had to ask the guardian, like, this is really awkward. I know you're not supposed to touch it, but this thing just told me to touch my forehead to it. And he said, "Yes, I know. You have permission, but please know that's a very advanced initiation." Here I found out after the fact is all the information it has locked away inside of it, it's locked, but it can be unlocked, but it needs to find a human that has that key to stick into the keyhole and turn the key. So, and all throughout time, it could have been the Wright brothers, you know what I mean, to bring flight. Um, for me, it's waiting to unleash unlimited free energy and knowing it's the right time. So I think that's why it was hunting me down because of 432, right? So when I went third eye to third eye with it, um, I can't even tell you what it was. One of the most beautiful experiences of my life. For one thing, I opened my eyes, and what I seen, I wasn't really prepared for. It was like the most beautiful kaleidoscope of a crystalline world, and it almost like snapped me out of the state of consciousness I was in. Like, holy shit, you know what I mean? But I've begun every solstice and every equinox and sometimes full moon phases, even if Bill isn't in this area. Bill's the current guardian. That I'm he brings me in and I tie in this area because, by the way, if you're ever in the States, you need to visit me here because AR said, you know what's underneath you in that area, don't you? I said, no, not really. And he said, it's the world's oldest underground base and it's not ours.
Mm.
And he said, the last time I was down there was 2009, and the entry point was Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And you take a big, an elevator deep down underground, and then you'd hit a magnetic train system that would take you. He said underground base wasn't really accurate. He said it's more like underground cities. And also, he had said you are living almost smack dab on the world's strongest vortex on the planet. We don't even know how you could be living there. And I know what he's talking about, but why that is this area is sitting on the world's largest salt deposits. Salt is a crystal. So it's really this whole area is sitting on top of a massive giant crystal. For instance, I don't know if you, where do you live at, by the way?
I used to live in Belgium. Now I'm living in Bulgaria. So East
Uh,
Europe.
right now. I don't know if you guys get Morton salt, but Morton is the biggest salt manufacturer in the States, and their salt factory is 10 minutes away, you know? So, like I said, if you're ever over here and, stop by, but the point of all this is too that Edgar Casey did a lot of prophecy on the Atlantean bloodline, but people aren't really aware. He also said what happened to the Atlantean race is they intertwined into the Native American First Nations mostly, but this gets a little confusing because, Lake Erie and the Erie Indians, long, long ago, the Erie Indians went to other locations on the planet and it was a mispronunciation. Instead of the Erie-ish, it became Irie-ish. The Irish, the Celtic. So you'll find a lot of similarities between the Celtic religion and mythology to Native American Indian. But the Hall of Records for the Atlantean race, once what you need to know is the Atlantean race, actually, there's three migrations from Atlantis. One was 51,000 years ago. 27,000 years ago was a biblical flood event, and that's when the intelligence acceleration was put in. Both of those times, the Atlantean bloodline went to the right, and they become the Basque people. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but uh, and some of that direction. But the elders and the Inky side, because you need to know, Edgar Casey called the Atlanteans the Poseidians, and Poseidon is Inky. It's, the elders stayed behind with the sinking ship, so to speak. And the last Earth change was a meteorite impact, from what I understand. And for the first time, the Atlanteans went to the left and came up into the bottom of the North American continent, first into the Mayan culture. They'll even tell you, we didn't do this. It was this big white dude, Cody Quetzal, that taught them pyramid building and the Mayan calendar. But because of the intelligence acceleration software starting 27,000 years ago, I can tell you the dark, to see if they can get someone to bite a dark carrot. It all revolves around flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies. That's the defining factor. If you're stupid enough to do that shit, you're not ready for higher realms. So wherever we went, you got to think 27,000 years ago, it was implemented. For 10,500 years ago, that intelligence acceleration software was running for a very long time. So wherever us light side went, soon the dark was to follow. So even though we went to the Mayan culture and was culture bringers, sooner or later the flesh and blood sacrifices started to set in. So the elders were like, well, they've learned something, but obviously they haven't learned enough. Let's get the hell out of Dodge, And they went across the can't remember what it's called, but the Gulf right there, and they went into what's called Crystal River, Florida. And this is about to be revealed to the planet, because just recently, within the last few years, they found a Mayan step pyramid in Florida, United States. So there's no question. And there's a Mayan settlement there that they know it's a Mayan. There's mounds, and those mounds um, pinpoint equinoxes and solstices and moon phases, which is a trademark of that. Because just so you know, equinoxes and solstices, the most chi and prana flow through Earth's ley lines. It ebbs and flows. It's not just a steady current of energy. That's why Native American Indians always would put a mound site where ley lines cross, because there's a vortex there. And so the mound builders the Atlanteans came into Florida, but eventually exited the top left-hand side of Florida and entered the interior of what became America. But there's three migration routes. That became the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota of the Sioux. It's called the Sioux tribes. But that right side migration route goes all the way up around the Great Lakes, and it has the Cherokee and the Iroquois, and on the Canada side, the Huron tribe. Edgar Casey himself said the Atlantean bloodline intermingled into the Native American Indian tribes, and the Iroquois have the largest numbers, but most of them are still sleeping. They haven't woken up yet. The Sioux have lesser numbers, but they have retained their star knowledge the most out of and star knowledge is really, first of all, what is star knowledge? It's the knowledge of light and sound and how it creates physical reality, but it also contains the spiritual wisdom of how consciousness supersedes everything. So that would get into the knowledge of what we would call the law of attraction. Thoughts create reality. Think about what you're thinking about, because it matters. So Yeah, the that earthwork is here, and I'm in the middle of revealing it to the planet because I was contacted by a guy from the Smithsonian, and he said, we're really happy that you're revealing that the mound builders made East Lake, Ohio, home base. And he said, are you aware that there's still an intact earthwork? I said, no, no one knows that here. And he told me where to find it. And he said in the 70s, a small dig happened, an excavation, and some artifacts were removed out of that mound that tie it to ancient Sumer or the Anunnaki. And so, because of this, Bill Hammond, the guy that is the current owner of the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, was like pretty insistent that he made contact with me. And so, right before Chief Enlil passed in 2021, I had all the elders here and we did ceremony with the skull at that earthwork to reveal all of this to the planet, these hidden history that mankind doesn't know. And so that's when my work began with the skull. Now you know.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing yourself and freely and going really opening the floodgates and
Right
I
on.
feel like nurtured and energized by our conversation. Um,
Oh, there is one thing I got to share with you is AR said the work we did, we had a 7-member team. He said you would know in the future that we would be needed again. And I think the number that he gave me was there'd be 72 of us. And we would be taken to different locations on the planet that were ancient arrow sites, which is what wing makers call these Pleiadian time capsules of information left for humanity. He said it was important that we needed to be taken there because the technology can only be activated by someone of our blood. It's like thumbprint, you know what I mean? That it won't even turn on unless we are there to turn it on. But he said the time would come that I would know. He said we, by the way, but I would be told where these locations are on the planet, and that would be a sign that it's time. And at that time, I needed to have a bug out bag. Like sooner or later, probably a Black Hawk helicopter is going to land and go, it's time, and we would be taken to these new locations to finish the work that we began in 2012. Well, I'll just spit it out. When you read the Dr. Neruda interviews, you're going to learn about an individual named 15. And he's called 15 because I'm sure you've heard of Majestic Wolf.
yeah, I know about 15.
Oh, right on. Well, that's AR as well. So all of those are the same person. Dr. Neruda was 15, was AR Borden. I find that fascinating. But when you read the Dr. Neruda interviews, it talks about the NSA ACIO, which is the Light Physics Group. They were in technology transfer programs with this council called the Cortium. The Cortium is the Anunnaki Council. And even Josh just commented on this. He said it's right there in the name, Cortium. It's the Anunnaki court. And so that's just need to know information when you read it. So it puts all this puzzle pieces together for you. But the head of the Cortium who was named as James Mahu, and he's the one that brought the artwork and the philosophy and the Wingmakers material, and then met with AR, and AR decided that this needed to be released to the planet, and it was released as the Wingmakers material. The reason I'm telling you this is a few years back, for the longest time, James Mahu was very silent and hidden. He's like, I don't want me to become the focal point of this and to become a guru for other people. I'm not important. The information is important. So he didn't do any interviews, no media or anything. But the person that was tasked uh, to build the website and to bring all this information, his name was Mark Hempel, and was really interesting, by the way, because AR got kind of sick of me asking him questions about the wing makers. He's like, "How about if I just arrange an interview?" And at that time, I was hosting Other World Radio with Sandra and Charlotte, and he arranged an interview that he brought Mark Hempel on, and that I can send it to you, is because that was really cool that we got to ask him everything. I had a lot of questions, you know. But a couple years ago, James Mahu released 4 1-hour audio interviews with Mark Hempel to explain everything, the ancient arrow sites, how it became the Wingmakers material, what the Wingmakers material is truly trying to do here to rise the consciousness of mankind into the next golden age. So if to take a deep dive into the Wingmakers, I would actually suggest to you to begin with the James audio interviews. Because
Send it
first
right.
of all,
Yeah, I'll follow your suggestion.
yeah, first of all, his voice, dude, it's not even human. But there's so much wisdom, and I've never heard a higher level of, I don't know, just putting very complex ideas together in complete sentences that make perfect sense, which I try, but I fail miserably. Man, all of this, I feel like the Forrest Gump of all this. It's like just weird shit has happened to me. I'm just a rock and roll guitar player that weird shit happen it seems to happen. James is an expert communicator of these things. So take a deep dive into the James audio interviews. From there, my next suggestion would be to move on to the Dr. Neruda interviews. I could tell you there's 5 of those, and each one probably 30, 40 pages. They're big interviews. They cover a lot of material. The 5th interview, AR told me, you know, he said the ACIO is more of the research and development portion of this reverse engineering technology transfer program group. The Labyrinth group is the more even secretive division of that, where the Anunnaki are physically on the ground, boots on the ground, to help understand these technology. So what I'm understanding too is I'm part of the technology transfer program of Anunnaki cosmic harmonious frequency information being given to mankind through being brought into the fold with AR Borden. It hurts my head, but I'm cool with it. I'm proud of it. But that's about it. But as you go through, keep me in the loop of, your thoughts. And I think that's about it
Do you feel complete?
for now.
All good then.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
man.
Yeah, thank you for this amazing conversation. What shall
Uh,
we do with it now?
that's what they always ask, isn't it? As a matter of fact, Frank said, what's your plans? What are you going to do with it? And AR said too, you know, I'm excited to see what you develop into and what you do with this information. So, to me, my mission always has been to bring living water to this planet, period. And so I'm really excited about Elon Musk taking it to the moon in November because I feel mission to fruition. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
even though I know I'm not done yet, I'm just getting started. But I feel the sense of I've done what I came here to do. And that brings a feeling of, I don't know, like relaxing into it. There's no stress. There's no, you know, I think you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, and congratulations for it. It needs to be earned, that kind of feeling, and well done. Uh, my question was more, what shall we do with this recording here? Uh,
Oh,
there's a lot of
I,
things being dropped. Maybe I should edit it a little bit if we are to publish it. I think,
I'm absolute, dude. I'm an open book. And I think a lot of what we talked about now, oh shit, though, I've brought up, I guess it's not going to go over well with Frank if we talk about AR being Dr. Neruda.
I can edit some parts. So every time you say Frank, I'm gonna edit that out for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Please do that. Please remove anything that has to do with, you know, AR being Dr. Neruda. But I got a question. I wonder why that's a no-no, that they don't want people knowing that AR Borden is truly Dr. Neruda. And Josh said he was wondering how long it was going to take for people to start figuring that out. But he had an interesting comment that he doesn't think that's his real name either.
Mm.
He doesn't think it's Dr. Neruda or AR Borden. So I don't know. But
Yeah, in the end,
uh
who cares what his name is? I feel
yeah, it
into
doesn't.
confusion.
Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you is when the Anunnaki told me we're removing your memory blocks and that you're going to start to have a lot of past life recall of your other incarnations. And said it could cause actually some uh, finding out who you are in other incarnations. There might be some people that are pretty prominent, and don't let it uh, bring in feelings of superiority or messiah complex, because they told me specifically the acorn is no less significant than the giant oak it will one day become in Source's eyes. That
Mhm.
we all go through these cycles of evolution. And a ninth grader is no more important than a seventh grader. And a ninth grader doesn't feel support superiority over a seventh grader. You know, the ninth grader knows the seventh grader will become a ninth grader, and the ninth grader is going to become a 12th grader. It's just the natural flow. But they also told me something very interesting is we've all lived many, many lifetimes, and we've all had many, many names, and so many names that names will become useless and pointless. He said, truly, what you are is nameless, but not voiceless. You know, all of us, like you said, AR's name really isn't important. It's his frequency, it's his voice, you know? And I just wanted to share that, you know, because I'm totally cool with Mike, you know, but I can tell you, I now have a list about this long of different identities through my Native American even incarnations. But even going back in Tibet, I was known as Maitreya. I don't know if it sounds familiar to
No.
you. But it's interesting, Maitreya, because it's a Tibetan word that means loving kindness. But the Western world has turned me into an antichrist. It's kind of what they do, right? But you know, I have a lot of past life recall now of, but it's always the same story, by the way. But I also was told by Enlil, which in the Bible, by the way, his name was Yahweh. It should sound familiar. But I found out that Yahweh was known to the Cherokee and the Iroquois long before the first testament of the Bible. And he was known to be Chief Yahweh, was said to sit between these two councils of light and dark. Um, they called them war chiefs and peace chiefs. And he's the only one that sat in the middle of these two galactic councils. But in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, they call those two sides seven lords of light and the seven lords of darkness. Matter of fact, the seventh tablet of the Emerald Tablets is called the Seven Lords um, tablet. So I found out that Yahweh isn't a name either. It's those are ancient Hebrew. They're musical tones. They're the tones of creation. And when you know how to tune them properly, you know, so I know them. I've cracked the code. But when I, told Chief Golden White Eagle this, I said, Chief, I understand because, you know, the veil dropped between he and I when I was brought before the council, and I would not participate in flesh and blood sacrifice ceremony. It really, dude, it was horrific actually what I was made to witness. And I said, no, this isn't right, and I won't do it. And he said, Michael, Spirit is so glad that you wouldn't enter their territory because Spirit looks at anybody who participates in these flesh and blood sacrifice ceremonies as prostitute. But he went on to explain everything, which I have a much greater understanding of darkness and how they operate because of him. Um, One thing I can tell you is it said it's all about self-inflicted suffering brought about through your own free will. It can't happen unless you open the back door and let it in and give it permission. And he said, but they're very tricky. He said the trickiest way the dark have to get us to enter their territory is through your own love and compassion. Thought that was very interesting. But the next time we were together, I had found out about Chief Yahweh. And I said, Chief, this was really awkward. Again, I get to say that a lot, but Spirit has led me to understand that you are Yahweh or Enlil, my brother. And he said, yes, I've done some pretty messed up things. It was his first words to me. I really didn't even know how to respond to that. I'm like, well, haven't we all? And he said, but I want you to know that this isn't the first time that we've met. We've met in many other incarnations. And the last time it wasn't pleasant. I'm like, oh shit. This isn't the conversation I was expecting, you know? And he said, but now I understand you were only showing me my own darkness. And really what happened was that side of the family didn't look very favorably upon mankind, that we would ever not give our energy away. But to represent mankind before the council, Seven Lords Council, War and Peace Chiefs, whatever you want to call it, you can't come at any higher frequency or awareness level of any other human. So that's why memory blocks are used and, to contain the energy. Because they said, truly, first of all, the human vessel is not capable of handling an incoming Anunnaki energetic signature. That when we first tried to help, you know, guide this intelligence acceleration software from behind enemy lines, so to speak, we would incarnate in the human genome and spontaneously combust, burst into flames. And evidently, obviously, it doesn't really matter how much you want to help. That doesn't work out real well, you know? So that's why the Nephilim, our bloodline, was even created to create a human offshoot that had more chi or prana available at a cellular level, which is done by an increase of an enzyme called creatine kinase. And everyone's brains releases creatine kinase, but it's 25 parts per liter of blood for a normal human. But if you've had a muscle damage, ripped a muscle working out, or had a heart attack, your body will increase that creatine kinase level to about 250 to about 300 tops because creatine kinase brings extra oxygen into the bloodstream. Extra oxygen equates to how much chi or prana or electricity that you can hold at a cellular level. And when I was on the History Channel and they flew me to Boston to have my blood work done by a Harvard professor, and I was at 2100 versus 25. And but by the way, AR told me that within the ACIO there was, I think it was a little bit over 200 members, and 12 of my bloodline, which what I was told was we were all of the same bloodline. So I would say that you're the same. But out of those 12 individuals, my numbers of 2100 would about put me in the middle of those 12. The highest was 12,000. And he told me specifically that the dark had hit him with a particle beam weapon, and he was able to get up and brush himself off and walk away from it, like meaning most people wouldn't have got up. So that's what happened is they created the Anunnaki to create the Nephilim bloodline, was genetically causing a certain bloodline of humanity to have an Anunnaki virus that would trick the brain into releasing these massive amounts of creatine kinase. So there would be a larger pool of chi or prana, life force, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. So that's just more information for you. Maybe we can do a part two and actually get into the work we did and why, with, you know, what we did. Because I think that's pretty important of, how can I say this? I'm finding out over and over again, A.R. Borden has saved millions of lives on this planet. Even back in the 60s with, and it's weird that the work we did saved millions of lives in 2012 by reducing the storm intensities of earthquake Sandy and no, Hurricane Sandy and earthquake Charlotte, which that was easy because those are the two females in our team. It makes it easy to remember. But I don't know if you know this because it wasn't really a part of our mission. Our mission was to ask the Anunnaki's help to remove the energy out of Hurricane Sandy. But I had seen that there was an earthquake on the left side of the United States that created a wall of water. And I took that mission on myself. And by the time, because tsunami buoys do not lie, there was a 20-foot wall of water heading towards Hawaii. And it was taking about 5 hours to reach Hawaii. So during that night, I have all the news broadcasts, by the way, saved of them taking everyone on Hawaii to higher ground, because they were, well, this wave of water should be hitting around 5 a.m. So they took everyone to higher ground. By the time that wave hit, it was about an inch high. So I feel good. I've never been doing this for the glory of it or anything, but I find it very funny. I guess I don't even know the right word, but knowing on a personal level that we saved so many lives in the work we did. And it seems like we're going to be doing it again by, which we can talk about that too. I think I know what the actual event is. And mm, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. 2036 coming up is going to be monumental because there's a meteorite. It's called Comet Apophis. And stealth fighter, stealth bomber, Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, I know some people within that organization. They've already sent a spacecraft up to see its trajectory, and it's supposed to be passing between the Earth and the Moon in 2029. It's not going to be debatable. Um, the whole world's going to see it, and it's a very large meteorite. But then it gets locked into our atmosphere, and it orbits 4 more times with of a 7 year time span between 2029 and 2036. 2036, they're expecting impact. Now, the Native American Indians said through Chief Golden Light Eagle, Enlil, said that I was sitting next to him, dude, at he brought me in to speak on behalf of the mound builders, and he's like, Spirit's given us chiefs permission to announce that there will be another celestial object entering our solar system in the very near future, and it would be here in 2036. Um, but the moon will has said she will put herself in the way and take the hit for us. It'd still be horrific. It would crack the moon into 3 segments, and chunks of the moon would then rain down on planet Earth. Um, I can tell you that's not what's happening. Just like Oumuamua, we can get into that, but it's truly the Pleiadians have communicated to all at a Star Knowledge Conference. All the grandmothers got together and went into meditation and ceremony to ask for help and like what is going on with this comet that's coming in. And they showed us it's not a meteorite or comet at all. It's our second moon being flown in, just like the first one was. And I'm sure you know now that the moon is not what we think it is. It's hollow. And I can tell you, Richard Hoagland said, even before Russia just sent a craft there, he goes, people don't know. It's not going to be common knowledge until next April for the full totality eclipse. But there's large glass domes over all the craters and even in some of the spots between the craters. So the only way that you can really visualize it is think of the moon as an onion. You're looking at the onion from the side, that all those petals is like a dome. And they're only about 100 feet above the surface. So from here, and it said that what we don't know, but NASA does, that once glass is made in zero gravity, there's no oxygen in the glass and it is stronger than metal. So it's like the preferred building material is glass. But he had told me personally, he said Russia's just about a month ago sent a spacecraft to land on the moon. And he said they don't know about these domes and they're going to crash. It's going to hit the glass. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So for whatever that's worth. But he said now we have the technology, with even cameras that are 8K, and having the resolution available that come next April, it's not going to be any question that the moon has a glass buffer over it, and those glass domes are filled with habitats. And not only that, he said that, like, say a meteorite does come and hit one of those domes, all these little robots come out and repair it, like AI, like, um, so by the way, AR had brought me into a meeting with the elite. And because they shut me down in a TV show I'd filmed with Spike TV, and he made them explain themselves to me. It was pretty fucking weird, man. But forgot. Oh, they were very worried about revealing that we're not alone to the world because of religious fundamentalist Christians and either other religions, what effect it would have on them, because a lot of them are going to go fallen angels, demons, and it could cause a lot of problems. And I said, well, we're all in agreement here that, by the way, I got to share. Well, I don't want to lose this. I told them if you're worried about how the religious sector is going to respond to this news that we're not alone, which the moon is going to do that before anything. I said, why don't you reveal the reality of this intelligence? It's not, it's Anunnaki in our past first. That should alleviate some of that fear because obviously, if they wanted us harmed, we would be harmed. If they wanted to take over, they could take over. There's nothing we could do about it. So to me, the knowledge of who built the pyramids and all these ancient civilizations are being revealed right now to the planet. Like, I can never say it right. Gobli Tepe. I think that's something. You know what I'm talking about in Turkey? They found that old ancient site. Well, they know it's 12,500 years old. And they're finding sites like Graham Hancock is totally on this. Like, there
Is it
is,
the underground city you're referring to in Turkey?
yeah, they unburied it and
Yeah.
yeah. So they actually, the elite liked that. They said, yeah, let's do that. And we will begin to reveal to the world that we've never been alone. The Anunnaki were actually here before Homo sapien. And so I think that's what's happening right now with the preparation, as you said, phase of this. But man, I don't know, dude. I only seen this guy one time, but AR didn't do most of the talking in that meeting. There's about 8 people. I've never seen those people before or after. But the guy that did most of the talking was a really young dude, like looking like you actually. Uh, he it wasn't what I expected. I was expecting some old dude, that was from military and was wearing a suit or something. This guy looked like he just came out of a Twilight movie and might have been a werewolf or a vampire, but he was super cool. He was really nice. But wonder who he was. I was never given a name. But yeah, remember that Pythagoras conference that we were all supposed to be part of? Simultaneously, I was working with Spike TV and gave them 9 months of my life. And not only did they shut down the Pythagoras conference, but they shut down my TV show. So AR was like, well, you can do that, but you're going to have to explain yourself to Michael, which that's crazy to me. But at that time, I had one of those little webcams that are like, you know, and I definitely did not want to be in front of a camera. I just woke up, and so I had this little golden statue of a Buddha that was only about this big, and I had it in front of the camera. So my whole screen on that screen thing was like this golden Buddha head, and AR's like, uh, Michael. I'm like, oh no, dude, I wiggle it around. That's just a statue. I'm not, I'm not a golden Buddha, dude. But that's how I did the whole interview. Was all they seen was a golden Buddha head. But I don't know. Maybe Frank would know because the guy seemed really cool. He was really nice, and he's the one. For instance, AR said, "Tell Michael what we know about these orbs of light that are showing up worldwide." And he said, "We look at them as probes, or yeah, like probes. But the intelligence behind the probe might not be from our timeline. It might be from our past or future. That's, something I don't even know how to wrap my head around that. But by the way, that's exactly what Bigelow Aerospace told me is that these orbs of light are the real deal, but people are expecting craft made out of alien metal and alien nuts and bolts. Said that's not what this is, that they have more to do with portals and time travel than anything else. And so just some more info for you.
Have you ever heard about the Terra papers?
Is that by a Native American Indian fellow?
Not sure, but it's about history, a lot of history. I'm gonna send that to you. The thought has been
Please
popping up.
do. I think it's about if I'm not mistaken, what you're talking about is from a guy, his last name,
Yeah.
he's a Native American Indian, and
Morning
it's
Star.
Morningstar.
Yeah,
Morningstar, yes. That is the story of the history of me and Chief Colin Light Eagle on the planet.
here you go.
I'd
Yes,
love to read it again, but please send it. But right now, you know, last year I had retina reattachment surgery, and I'm about legally blind right now, so reading isn't
yeah,
but
understood.
that's very, very accurate. And that's why, Enlil said we've been butting heads for a very long time because I was not cool with wiping mankind off of letting it happen. And that the Terra Papers tells the story very, very well. But yeah, I'm glad you know what it is, and please send it. I haven't read it in a couple of years.
Will do.
Right on.
Beautiful.
Well, I had a great time talking with you. I'm excited too. It's energizing talking to family.
It is.
So you have a wonderful rest of the day. Well, it's night there now, right?
Yeah, it's almost midnight.
Right on.
I will close down shop and I'll look at the video tomorrow and chop it off and send you a prototype. And well, tomorrow or later on, I'll send you when it's ready,
Yeah,
and
at your convenience.
and we'll take it from there.
What we could do too, so is you can release it through your networks, but I could also put it through like just because I've been on the History Channel. I got over 5 million views now on my uh, YouTube channel with a whole shit ton of subscribers. So we can get it out there in front of people. And the time is now, right?
Also, something I've thought about, the part where you describe your 432, it was in very beginning. I've thought about extracting that and putting that on your website also. I think it communicates really well the value it brings and the potential it has. So I might do that part out and have like a longer conversation for
Wow,
YouTube.
that'd be fantastic. You know what? For that, uh, I'm going to share this stuff with you, but from NASA, I have all of their scientific data, even the carrion photography that can photograph life force chi. I have all of the results from California municipal tap water, Canadian spring water, and Nevian bottled water. But not only the photography of 15 minutes, then a half hour, and then 50 minutes, but all of then they take that photography and put it through computer software that can actually give you a spit out of how much the luminosity has increased, how much energy it's gained, and all of that. I have all of that. But um reason like I told you about the Meisner field and my friend that has the technology, I have all of that as well. So as AR always said, a picture is worth a million words. And to see it, and for me personally to know, man, that it only takes 2 seconds. It's almost like, and by the way, your left hand is the important, that's the receiver transmitter.
Mhm.
So when you hold a 432 disc in your left hand, it hits the whole body. But that's weird because he put it in my right hand now that I think about it. But Spirit's telling me, well, the left hand is truly the chakra into the human Meisner field. But it hurts my head like to think of all you got to do is hold it. There's nothing you even need to do, man. It's like obviously, if you meditate and get into a state of consciousness, it probably even help. But for the common person, it's almost like getting access to a chi master from the Orient, that can heal your body or whatever, and by just holding this disc. And so I did notice, I tell people just hold it while you're watching TV or listen to music, and you'll notice as you hold it, you do. What disc did you buy, by the way? I forgot now.
I think I made you pick one for me. I
Mm,
received the mugs, but nothing else yet. I'm patient.
right on. I'll get you I want you to have the one I sent to NASA, period. Um, I don't know. I'll tell you where I'm at with this because Nikola Tesla said, first of all, NASA's freaked out because the only time that they've seen a cosmic energy collector that's been invented is Nikola Tesla. And his had multiple parts and moving parts, meaning Tesla coils and a Tesla tower. They're freaked out because this is the first time ever that they've seen a device that's been invented that has no moving parts. Um, but how was Nikola Tesla going to take cosmic energy that had been produced by a Tesla tower and broadcast it over a city and light up a light bulb? I, I have no idea how to tap the energy that's coming from these. Is it as simple as just soldering a positive and negative lead to it and taking a voltmeter and go, holy shit, there's a charge? I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud. But he said this would be the energy that would free mankind from the oil, you know, fossil fuel, polluting energy, that this is unlimited and free in energy. But by the way, that's very interesting because that's what the group A.R. Borden brought me into for that meeting, said unlimited free energy is truly why the extraterrestrial subject has been kept from mankind. Said you don't even need extraterrestrial intervention. People like Nikola Tesla has figured it out. But he said that this young guy that I was telling you, he said, I know it sounds like unlimited free energy on the surface, sounds like a great plan, great idea, but it's truly Pandora's box. It's unlimited, it's free, and it's energy. And if it's misused, it can create weapons of mass destruction that would make anything we have today look like child's play. So that's why he said once people know that we're not alone, then the next question is, well, how are they getting from A to B? That's going to lead to their propulsion systems, and that leads to ideas of unlimited free energy. And at that point, they didn't trust. Obviously, something has changed, but even when this happened, that would have been probably 2012. And so it went under national security that anything that would reveal unlimited free energy was shut down to the point that it killed people, you
Mhm.
know? Um, but something has shifted big time because now of UFOs being revealed. And by the way, the Anunnaki met with Eisenhower in the early 50s, and that's when the ACIO was actually put together and AR started, you know, the, what became the LPG. And the Anunnaki said, we know, pretty much they said, we'll help you get to unlimited free energy, but it has to be done very carefully. And we will be overseeing the rollout of this so it's not misused. And they said, we're not we're not going to take over, and you still have time, but we know you're meeting with the Greys, and we highly suggest you do not partner with them. And sure enough, because the Anunnaki said, we will help you, but you got to get away from your nuclear power ambitions. You don't know what you're dealing with, and it has bigger repercussions hyperdimensionally than you know. and you don't know what you're doing. So we'll help you. And that explains too what I'm sure you know, that UFOs have went down over nuclear installations and taken out their nuclear weapons and put them into no-go, and missile tests that taken out missiles out of the sky over and over again. They're like, no, you have no clue what you're doing. And that our government partnered with the Greys because they didn't give us any stipulations. As long as we would let them abduct us, and say the number was 1,000 people a year, which that went through the roof, and the people wouldn't be harmed and they'd be returned and their memory wiped, we would let them do that. And they didn't care what technology they were giving us. They're like, yeah, let's give the children matches. We don't give a fuck. But AR told me that the Greys are actually the best geneticists in the multiverse. That when they take people and the genetic work that's done, that information gets put into a galactic library that all of the other races use. And in every other uh, scientific realm, or whatever you want to call that, the Anunnaki are superior. And that's why AR decided to partner with the Anunnaki over the Greys. But that's interesting info, I do believe.
It is. I don't know why, but it may come handy in the near
Oh,
future.
I asked AR, I said, well, what the hell? Obviously, they know what they're talking about. What's it going to take to get another offer on the table? Because we need their help. We need their help to help us clean up the mess we've made on this planet. And he said, what makes you think we didn't go into technology transfer programs with them right then and there? It just didn't go public. He said, where do you think ENS, electrical neurosensing came from? Where do you think LERM, MPO concepts came from? It came from our technology transfer programs. And I thought that was very interesting in itself.
Crazy
It's
world.
funny. I don't know if I got a weird way of conversing, but a lot of the times, like, especially if we're not face to face, I quit talking and people are like, are you still there? I'm like, I'm done. I mean, maybe I should start going when I quit talking and I'm finished, go over and out, you know?
Yeah, I like to digest, we've been talking about it in the beginning of the call, digest with my whole system.
Right
Um,
on, right on.
in.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your intellect. And speaking with you has been a real joy to I don't get to talk at this level much. Most of my friends and stuff, I'll go out for a beer and all they're into is the Cleveland Browns.
Mm.
And, if I try to talk at all, so it actually makes me feel kind of lonely. I feel very isolated. And I just sit there with my mouth closed, like nod my head, So it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
Yeah, shared pleasure. I feel like um, we're geeking out and I love it,
Mm.
talking
Right
about all
on, man.
these things. Um,
Love you. And, let's talk here soon. We'll do a part two and we'll get into specifics of the work we did in our beta team.